Leatherback sea turtle. The leatherback sea turtle is not just the largest turtle alive. It's a living submarine built from ancient blueprints, carrying the weight of 100 million years on a shell that isn't even really a shell. This creature can grow up to 7 feet long and weigh over 2,000 pounds, making it heavier than most grand pianos and longer than most humans are tall. But here's what makes it truly different. While every other sea turtle on Earth carries a hard shell made of bony plates, the leatherback went a completely different direction. Its back is covered in thick, rubbery skin reinforced with thousands of tiny bone plates, creating a flexible, leather-like surface that bends and moves with every stroke. This design isn't a weakness. It's an adaptation that lets the leatherback dive deeper than any other turtle, plunging over 4,000 feet below the surface, deeper than most military submarines ever go. Down there in the crushing darkness, it hunts the only thing it eats, jellyfish. And it doesn't just nibble. A leatherback can consume up to 73% of its own body weight in jellyfish every single day. To make that work, its throat is lined with hundreds of backward-pointing spines that look like something from a nightmare, all designed to trap slippery jellyfish and push them down toward the stomach. The leatherback is also the fastest reptile in the ocean, capable of reaching speeds close to 22 mph when needed. It migrates farther than almost any marine animal, traveling up to 10,000 miles across entire ocean basins, navigating using Earth's magnetic field like a built-in GPS that never needs updating. It's the only sea turtle that can regulate its body temperature well enough to swim in frigid Arctic waters, a trick that involves a unique circulatory system and a thick layer of insulating fat. But life is getting harder. Plastic bags floating in the ocean look exactly like jellyfish, and leatherbacks can't tell the difference. They swallow plastic and it blocks their digestive systems, slowly starving them from the inside. They also get tangled in fishing nets, caught as bycatch while boats hunt for tuna and swordfish. Climate change is warming the beaches where they nest, and warmer sand creates more female hatchlings, throwing off the balance between males and females. Out of every 1,000 baby leatherbacks that hatch and scramble toward the ocean, only one will survive to adulthood. The rest will be picked off by birds, crabs, fish, and the endless dangers of the open sea. Yet the leatherback keeps going. It's a creature that survived the extinction of the dinosaurs by learning to dive deeper, swim faster, and travel farther than anything else with flippers. While other turtles hide in hard shells, the leatherback chose flexibility over armor, endurance over defense. The leatherback doesn't just survive the ocean, it masters it. Green sea turtle. The green sea turtle is basically the gentle vegetarian of the sea, the only turtle that decided plants were worth more than meat. Despite the name, its shell isn't green. It's usually olive brown, or sometimes patterned with rays of darker color. The green comes from the color of its body fat, which turns green from a lifetime of eating seagrass and algae. Adults can grow between 3 and 4 feet long and weigh anywhere from 300 to 400 pounds, though some individuals have been recorded at over 700 pounds. That makes them the second largest sea turtle species, and yet they move through the water with surprising grace, cruising at a leisurely 1.5 mph, but capable of bursting up to 20 meters when threatened. What makes the green turtle so unique is its diet. When they're young, green turtles eat anything they can find: jellyfish, crabs, sponges, small fish. But as they mature, something shifts. They become strict herbivores, grazing on underwater meadows of seagrass like cows in a field. This makes them the only sea turtle species to go fully vegetarian as adults, and it changes everything about how they live. They have serrated jaws perfectly shaped for tearing seagrass and scraping algae off rocks. They spend their days moving slowly through shallow coastal waters, cropping seagrass beds down to healthy levels, which actually helps the grass grow back stronger. In a way, they're ecosystem engineers, maintaining the underwater meadows that countless other species depend on for food and shelter. Green turtles can hold their breath for up to 5 hours when resting, though they usually surface every few minutes when active. They can live 60 to 70 years, and some researchers believe certain individuals might reach 100 years or more. They travel incredible distances between their feeding grounds and nesting beaches, sometimes crossing hundreds of miles of open ocean, and they almost always return to the exact same beach where they were born. Only the females ever come back to land. Males spend their entire lives in the ocean after hatching, never touching sand again. But green turtles face serious threats. For centuries, they were hunted heavily for their meat and eggs. Green turtle soup was considered a delicacy, and entire populations were wiped out. Even though hunting is now illegal in most places, it still happens. They also suffer from fibropapillomatosis, a tumor disease that causes massive cauliflower-like growths on their skin and organs. In some areas, up to 50% of green turtles show signs of this disease, and scientists still don't fully understand what causes it. Coastal development destroys seagrass beds. Boat strikes injure and kill turtles in shallow feeding areas. And light pollution confuses hatchlings trying to find the ocean. The green turtle is a reminder that not every ocean survivor needs to be a fierce hunter. Sometimes the strongest strategy is choosing an entirely different path, one that nobody else is taking. Loggerhead sea turtle, built like a tank with a head like a battering ram and jaws strong enough to crush a conch shell into powder, the loggerhead is the powerhouse of the sea turtle world. Named for its massive, blocky head that houses incredibly powerful jaw muscles, these turtles grow between 2.5 and 3.5 feet long, and typically weigh between 200 and 350 pounds, though some individuals have been recorded at over 1,000 pounds. Their shells are thick, reddish-brown, and heart-shaped, built to take a beating in the rough coastal waters where they hunt. And make no mistake, loggerheads are hunters. While green turtles graze peacefully on seagrass and leatherbacks drift through the open ocean chasing jellyfish, loggerheads patrol the ocean floor looking for hard-shelled prey that nothing else can crack. Horseshoe crabs, conchs, whelks, clams, and even stone crabs are all on the menu. Their jaws are so strong that they can shatter shells with ease, and their bite force is one of the highest among sea turtles. They have a strong sense of smell that helps them locate prey buried under the sand, and they'll dig with their flippers to uncover hidden meals. Loggerheads are found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, and they're one of the most widespread sea turtle species. They can dive to depths of 800 feet or more and stay submerged for 4 to 7 hours when resting, though they usually come up for air much more frequently when active. They're solitary creatures, spending most of their lives alone, cruising the ocean floor in search of their next meal. It takes a loggerhead 15 to 30 years to reach sexual maturity, a long time to survive in an ocean full of dangers. Females travel incredible distances between their feeding grounds and nesting beaches, sometimes covering over 7,500 miles. They nest every 2 to 3 years, and when they do, they lay around 100 to 120 eggs per nest, often returning to the same beach multiple times in a single season. Baby loggerheads hatch and immediately enter what scientists call a swimming frenzy, where they swim non-stop for 24 hours straight to reach the safety of deeper water. But loggerheads are in serious trouble. They're the most common sea turtle caught as bycatch in commercial fishing operations. Trawl nets, long lines, and gill nets kill thousands of loggerheads every year. Beach development and erosion eliminate the quiet, dark beaches they need for nesting. Artificial lighting from coastal cities disorients nesting females and confuses hatchlings, leading them away from the ocean and toward roads and buildings. Climate change is warming the sand where eggs incubate, and since warmer sand produces more female hatchlings, entire populations are becoming female biased, which could create breeding problems in the future. The loggerhead is proof that in a world of specialized hunters, sometimes brute force is the best strategy. While others chase fish or nibble plants, loggerheads crack open armored prey that nothing else can touch. A turtle that doesn't need speed, venom, or stealth, just a massive head, crushing jaws, and the patience to search the ocean floor for the toughest meals. Hawksbill sea turtle. The hawksbill sea turtle looks like something carved from amber and jade, its shell a work of art that nearly drove it to extinction. Beautiful things often pay the highest price. The hawksbill is smaller than most other sea turtles, growing to about 2 to 3 feet long and weighing between 100 and 150 pounds. But what it lacks in size, it makes up for in beauty. Its shell is covered in overlapping scutes that display stunning patterns of amber, orange, red, and brown swirling together like stained glass. This shell is the source of what people used to call tortoiseshell, the material that was carved into jewelry, combs, and decorative items for centuries. That beauty almost destroyed them. Hawksbills are named for their sharp, narrow, beak-like mouth that resembles a bird of prey's beak. This unique shape isn't just for show. It's a specialized tool that allows them to reach into narrow cracks and crevices in coral reefs, accessing food that other animals can't get to. Their diet is just as unique as their beak. Hawksbills primarily eat sponges, which are toxic to most other animals. These sponges contain chemicals that would poison most creatures, but hawksbills have adapted not only to tolerate these toxins, but to thrive on them. This diet actually makes their flesh toxic to predators and even to humans. They also eat sea anemones, jellyfish, and other soft-bodied reef creatures. Hawksbills are the most agile of all sea turtles, able to navigate the complex three-dimensional maze of a coral reef with ease. Their shells are more streamlined and tapered than other species, with a distinctive serrated edge along the back that helps them maneuver through tight spaces. They spend their lives in tropical coral reef ecosystems and play a crucial role in keeping those reefs healthy by controlling sponge populations. Without hawksbills, certain sponges would overgrow and smother corals, damaging the entire reef system. They're incredibly site-faithful, returning to the same feeding areas year after year, sometimes for decades. When it's time to nest, females prefer remote, undisturbed beaches, often choosing spots under vegetation rather than open sand. They can nest up to 4 times in a single season, with intervals of 2 to 3 years between nesting seasons. But hawksbills are critically endangered, among the most threatened of all sea turtle species. For hundreds of years, they were killed for their shells. Even though international trade in tortoiseshell is now banned, illegal poaching still happens. They also face threats from coral reef destruction. As reefs die from bleaching, pollution, and coastal development, hawksbills lose their homes and their food sources. They mature slowly, taking 20 to 40 years to reach breeding age, which means populations recover painfully slowly even when protection is in place. Sea level rise threatens their nesting beaches, and they're still accidentally caught in fishing nets. The hawksbill is living proof that beauty can be both a curse and a gift. The same shell that nearly destroyed them is now the reason people fight to save them. A turtle that eats poison and wears precious armor. Rare and worth more alive than dead. Kemp's Ridley sea turtle. The Kemp's Ridley sea turtle is the rarest sea turtle on Earth, the species that came within a breath of complete extinction before humans finally noticed. The Kemp's Ridley is the smallest of all sea turtles, growing to only about 2 feet long and weighing between 75 and 100 pounds. Its shell is almost circular, much wider in proportion to its length than other sea turtles, and typically a grayish-green color that helps it blend into the coastal waters it prefers. But size and color aren't what make the Kemp's Ridley special. It's what nearly happened to them, and what people did to stop it. In 1947, an estimated 40,000 female Kemp's Ridleys came ashore to nest on a single beach in Mexico, a place called Rancho Nuevo. It was one of the greatest wildlife spectacles on Earth. A mass synchronized nesting event called an arrabada, where thousands of turtles stormed the beach at once, overwhelming predators through sheer numbers. But by 1985, that number had crashed to just 702 nesting females. The species was on the edge of disappearing forever. The main culprit was commercial shrimping. Kemp's Ridleys feed in shallow coastal waters along the Gulf of Mexico, eating crabs, shrimp, jellyfish, mollusks, and sea urchins. They're strong swimmers, but rarely venture far from the continental shelf. This made them incredibly vulnerable to shrimp trawl nets, which dragged along the ocean floor, catching everything in their path. Thousands of Kemp's Ridleys drowned in nets every year. On top of that, their eggs were harvested heavily, and the fact that nearly the entire species nested on one single beach made them unbelievably vulnerable. One bad storm, one major disturbance, and the whole species could have been wiped out. But something remarkable happened. Conservationists, governments, and local communities came together to save them. Turtle excluder devices, or TEDs, were required on shrimp nets, giving turtles a way to escape. The nesting beach at Rancho Nuevo was heavily protected. Eggs were collected and relocated to safer beaches. Hatchlings were raised in captivity and released. It was one of the most intensive conservation efforts ever launched for a single species. And it worked, slowly and painfully. The population began to recover. Today there are around 7,000 to 9,000 nesting females. That's still critically endangered. That's still fragile. But it's proof that extinction can be reversed if people care enough to act. Kemp's Ridleys are the fastest maturing sea turtles, reaching adulthood in 10 to 15 years. Still a long time, but much quicker than other species that take 30 years or more. They're also unusual because they nest during the day. Unlike most sea turtles that come ashore at night, they still face threats. Oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico, like the Deepwater Horizon disaster, hit their habitat hard. Red tide algal blooms cause mass deaths. Climate change is affecting their primary nesting beach. But every Kemp's Ridley alive today exists because people refuse to let them disappear. The smallest turtle carrying the biggest conservation success story. A reminder that extinction isn't always inevitable. Olive Ridley Sea Turtle. The Olive Ridley Sea Turtle creates one of nature's most spectacular events. Arabatas, where tens of thousands of turtles storm beaches simultaneously in a synchronized invasion that overwhelms everything. Imagine standing on a beach in Costa Rica or India and watching the ocean come alive as wave after wave of turtles emerge from the surf, so many that you can barely see the sand beneath them. In some Arabatas, over 100,000 female olive ridleys can nest on a single beach over the course of just a few days. It's one of the greatest wildlife spectacles on the planet, and it happens because of a survival strategy built on overwhelming numbers. Olive ridleys are small turtles, growing to about 2 to 2.5 feet long and weighing between 75 and 100 pounds. Their shells are heart-shaped and colored in shades of olive gray to olive green, which is exactly where their name comes from. They're found in tropical waters of the Pacific and Indian Oceans, and despite being one of the most abundant sea turtle species in terms of total numbers, they remain vulnerable and threatened in many regions. What makes them truly unique is the Arabata phenomenon itself. The word Arabata comes from Spanish and means arrival, a perfect description. Scientists still don't fully understand what triggers these mass nesting events. They seem to be linked to specific environmental cues like lunar cycles, wind patterns, and offshore weather conditions, but the exact combination remains a mystery. What is clear is that this synchronized nesting reduces the risk for individual turtles. When thousands of females come ashore at once, predators like vultures, coyotes, and jaguars simply can't eat them all. The sheer volume of eggs overwhelms anything that might want to dig them up. Safety through numbers taken to an extreme level that few other animals can match. Not all olive ridley populations perform Arabatas though. Some nest solitarily, coming ashore alone like most other sea turtle species. Females can nest 1 to 3 times per season, and they may nest across multiple seasons throughout their lives. When the eggs hatch, the baby turtles emerge together in huge groups, flooding toward the ocean in a wave of tiny flippers and shells. This mass emergence has the same overwhelming effect on predators, so at least some hatchlings make it to the water. Olive ridleys are carnivorous, feeding on jellyfish, shrimp, crabs, small fish, and sea cucumbers. Their flexible diet allows them to thrive in many different environments, from coastal waters to the open ocean. Juveniles spend their early years drifting in the open sea, often associating with floating debris or mats of algae. Adults eventually return to coastal feeding areas, where they spend most of their time until it's time to migrate back to nesting beaches. But olive ridleys face serious threats despite their abundance. Their eggs are heavily exploited in many countries, often considered an aphrodisiac or delicacy. The fact that they nest in massive groups makes them incredibly vulnerable, because poachers can collect thousands of eggs in a single night from a single beach. They're also caught as bycatch in shrimp trawls and gill nets throughout their range. Coastal development is destroying the beaches they need for nesting, and marine pollution, especially plastic, kills many individuals each year. Climate change could disrupt the environmental cues that trigger arabatas, potentially throwing off the timing of these mass nesting events. Even though they're the most abundant sea turtle species, local populations are declining rapidly in some areas. The Olive Ridley proves that abundance isn't the same as safety. They turned vulnerability into a survival strategy by flooding beaches with so many turtles that predators couldn't possibly eat them all. Strength in numbers taken to an evolutionary extreme. Flatback sea turtle. The flatback sea turtle is the mysterious homebody that never leaves Australian waters, the only sea turtle that refuses to migrate across oceans, and the species science knows least about. While every other sea turtle species roams the world's oceans, crossing entire ocean basins and showing up on coastlines thousands of miles from where they were born, the flatback stays put. Its entire life, from hatching to death, happens within the waters surrounding Australia and Papua New Guinea. It's completely endemic to that region, found nowhere else on Earth, which makes it one of the most unusual sea turtles in existence. Flatbacks grow to about 2.5 to 3 feet long, and weigh between 130 and 200 pounds. They're named for their shell, which is unusually flat and smooth compared to other sea turtles, with upturned edges that give it a slightly wavy appearance. The shell color is typically a pale olive gray, sometimes with a slightly greenish tint. They don't have the bold patterns of a hawksbill or the deep reddish brown of a loggerhead. They're subtle, understated, built for life in the murky coastal waters they prefer. Flatbacks are shallow water specialists, spending most of their time on the continental shelf rather than venturing into the deep open ocean like leatherbacks or even juvenile green turtles. They prefer turbid water, the kind of murky, sediment-filled coastal areas that don't offer much visibility but are rich with food. Their diet is carnivorous, including sea cucumbers, jellyfish, soft corals, shrimp, and occasionally seagrass, though they're not strict herbivores like adult green turtles. They nest on remote beaches in northern Australia, primarily during the Australian summer from October to February. One of the most interesting things about flatback reproduction is their hatchlings. Flatback hatchlings are the largest of any sea turtle species, nearly twice the size of other species' hatchlings when they emerge from the nest. This gives them a better chance of survival in those early, vulnerable days when predators are everywhere. To compensate for the larger hatchling size, flatbacks lay smaller clutches, usually around 50 eggs, compared to the 100 or more that other species lay. It's a different reproductive strategy, quality over quantity. Because flatbacks don't migrate long distances like other sea turtles, they don't have the same epic ocean-crossing journeys. They stay relatively close to the Australian coast their entire lives, moving between feeding areas and nesting beaches, but never venturing across the Pacific or Indian Oceans. This makes them unique, but it also makes them vulnerable. Their entire species is confined to the waters of one country, which means regional threats can affect the entire population. If something goes wrong in Australian waters, there's no backup population somewhere else. Flatbacks face threats from bycatch and commercial fishing, particularly trawl nets used in Australia's northern prawn fisheries. Indigenous hunting is still legal in some areas, and while it's traditionally sustainable, increased pressure can impact local populations. Coastal development, marine debris, and ghost nets, abandoned fishing gear that drifts through the ocean trapping and killing marine life, all pose serious risks. Climate change is affecting the reefs and coastal ecosystems they depend on, and oil and gas development in northern Australia's waters threatens their feeding areas. The flatback is also one of the least studied sea turtle species, simply because they live in remote areas far from major population centers and research facilities. There are still major gaps in scientific understanding of their behavior, population size, and ecology. The flatback sea turtle is proof that survival doesn't require crossing oceans. While every other sea turtle travels the world, the flatback stayed home. and proved that sometimes knowing one place perfectly beats exploring everywhere. Australia's secret, swimming in waters most people never see. If you want to see more species explained, click the video on screen now and subscribe.